Hello everyone, Mariko, residential realtor with Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and welcome back to the Bridgewell Group YouTube channel where I talk about all things real estate. And in today's video, I am going to be doing an update on minimum down payment requirements in Canada. This is changing effective December 15th, 2024. So I'll be breaking down what is a down payment, quick differences between a deposit and a down payment just as clarification, running through the different tiers for down payment calculations, and then also doing an example for minimum down payment at different levels as well. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of down payments, I do just want to remind you that I am a residential realtor, and while I deal with this all the time, I should not necessarily be your main source for determining your minimum down payments. It's really important throughout the real estate purchasing process that you have a good team on your side, and obviously a realtor is going to be one of them, as they're going to be helping with the purchase and finding you the right home. But for down payments specifically, this is actually more in the wheelhouse of a mortgage broker. So you really want to make sure that you have an experienced mortgage broker that you know, that you like, that can walk you through this kind of information to basically figure out what the best down payment scheme is for you, whether you go insured, whether you go uninsured in terms of your mortgage, what the payments are going to look like at various down payment schedules. So if you'd like a recommendation for a mortgage broker, definitely feel free to reach out to us. Our team would be more than happy to send you in the right direction. So what is a down payment? This is essentially the amount that you are going to be personally putting down in terms of money towards the real estate purchase. So how are real estate purchases typically funded? It's either going to be cash, so that down payment, a mortgage, or some combination of the two of them. So this is why it's so important to enlist a mortgage broker, is because A, you want to figure out how much you're going to be able to qualify in terms of the mortgage, so that in turn you can say, okay, this is how much I'm going to need to put down in order to purchase the type of property that I want or need. And so this relationship that you're building with your team is essentially, okay, how much can I qualify for? How much money do I have to put towards this purchase? And then working with the realtor to say, okay, based on my budget, this is the amount that this is the type of property that I can realistically afford. And so starting with the finances is going to be a really great place to begin this journey for real estate purchasing, because everything is essentially dictated by that budget. The other thing that you're going to be wanting to consider with your mortgage broker is whether or not you go the insured mortgage route or the uninsured mortgage route. So essentially in Canada, there are requirements as to if you put less than 20% down on a property, you are going to have to get an insured mortgage. And so the idea behind this is essentially you're higher risk, you're putting less money down towards your purchase, and so they charge you an insurance premium that can potentially be blended into your mortgage that is exactly that. It's a premium on putting less down. So some people will want to consider putting more than 20% down just to avoid that insurance premium. Some people are okay with putting less than 20% down and paying off that insurance premium. So again, this is a conversation that you're going to want to have with your mortgage broker. So starting off with the minimum down payment rules, I think it's first important to understand that the minimum amount that you are required to put down is going to depend on your purchase price. So it's a different calculation if you are purchasing at the $500,000 mark versus say the $750,000 mark versus the plus $1.5 million mark. So I'll break those down for you. If you are purchasing up to a purchase price of $500,000, your minimum down payment is going to be a 5%. So that's pretty simple. If you are purchasing between the ranges of $500K to $1.5 million as of December 15th, 2024, but prior to December 15th, 2024, this number is going to be $500,000 up to $1 million. So just keep in mind the time frame. If you're working within this section here, then it's a sliding scale calculation. So it's 5% on the first $500,000 of your purchase price, and then 10% for any portion of your purchase price between the amount of, again, $500,000 to $1.5 million after December 15th, but prior to that, the $1 million mark is the cap. So I will be going into a calculation of this later just to kind of break it down and have it make more sense to you. But this is essentially the qualification for sliding scale for minimum down payment. If we are working with a number, a purchase price number over $1.5 million, again, as of December 15th, but currently as of the time I'm filming this video, which is October, that is $1 million, October 2024. This is a 20% total. So you lose the sliding scale, you lose the lower down payment schedule, and you have to do 20% total for the entirety of this purchase price. That is really important to know. And last but not least, all of these sections here are only for people that are looking to purchase it as their primary residence. If you are purchasing anything as an investment property, it doesn't matter if your purchase price is $500, if it's $750, if it's $1.5, it doesn't matter what it is. It's always going to be this blanketed 20% total amount. So just make sure that you're aware of that, because your minimum down payment for investment properties is very different than your minimum down payment for primary residences. So getting into an example on minimum down payments, I'm going to run through a couple different ones so that you can see how each bracket is calculated, but so that you can also see the impact of these changes that the government is making as of December 15th, 2024. So let's start off with the lowest tier, which hasn't changed. So any purchase price up to $500,000 is going to require a minimum of 5% down payment. So pretty simple calculation. Let's say that we're working with a number of $475,000, right? We're only working with one tier, so all we have to do is figure out how much that 5% is. So very simple calculation. We just go times 0.05%. I'll use my calculator here, and that comes out to $23,750. So your minimum down payment on $475,000 is only $23,750. Pretty easy. Now let's say that if we were going to do a different example and take it between this second bracket here where we have to use the sliding scale. So again, when we're in between this number of $500 to $1 million currently, or after December 15th, $500,000 to $1.5 million, we have to work on a sliding scale. So the calculation is the first $500K is subject to the 5%, plus any remaining amount between this portion is going to be subject to 10%. So let's say that we are working off of a $750,000 number, right? So what do? We take that first $500K and we're gonna multiply it by that 5% again, right? So that comes out to $25,000. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take the other portion, so $250,000, so 750 minus 500,000. That means the remaining amount that we have to calculate is $250,000. And we're going to multiply that by the 10% number that we need to take. So times 0.1, right? Which is obviously also $25,000. So when you add these two together, 25 plus 25, that means that for a $750,000 purchase, you are going to be subject to a $50,000 minimum down payment. So I really want to show you guys the impact of this change. So the next one that we're going to work with is going to be a $1.1 million number. So let's say that we are purchasing at the $1.1 million mark, right? As of the current rules, we would be above $1 million. So as of the current rules, we would be subject to 20%. So right now, all we would do is 1.1 million times 20% as the calculation, that comes out to $220,000 would be your minimum down payment requirement. Now, under the new rules, where as of December 15th, between the up to $1.5 million, you can work on this sliding scale. Let's really show that impact, right? So again, we're working with the first 500K times that 5% is $25,000. So 1.1 minus 500K, that means the remaining balance that we're working with under this new scheme is 600K that we would then calculate at that 10% mark. So 600K times 10% is going to be $60,000, right? So 25,000 plus 60,000 is $85,000. That is a huge difference as of December 15th. Based on the current rules, you would have had to give $220,000 as your minimum down payment. Now you only have to give $85,000. So a lot of the issue previously was that maybe you could qualify, but you just have a really hard time saving up that extra money to get to that down payment. So now that we have this change in minimum down payment rules, you won't be required to put as much down as you would previously if you are above that $1 million mark, but again, only up to a purchase price of $1.5 million. So working off the final example, just so that you guys can get an idea for what I mean with this 20% total, encompassing as a whole. So again, based on the old rules, we've kind of already done an example above $1 million. To show you that the calculation is quite simple. 1.1 times 0.2 equals 220,000. But let's base it off the new rules. So let's say that we're just going to change this to 1.6 million. So again, pretty simple. You just go 1.6 million times 0.2, which is that 20%. And this is a minimum down payment of $320,000. So just as a final reminder to make it very clear, as soon as you hit above that threshold, you're no longer able to qualify for an insured mortgage. So think like CMHC, Genworth, things like that. So you have to put this total 20% down instead of previously being able to work with this sliding scale amount. So last but not least, I just want to clarify the difference between deposit and down payment. And so a deposit can sometimes be the same amount as your down payment, but more often than not, the down payment is going to exceed the amount of the deposit. So the deposit, typically the expected norm in the real estate industry, at least in the Greater Vancouver area, is around 5%. There's no hard firm rule, but a lot of people will expect a minimum of 5%. So as we mentioned before, if you are working with a number less than $500,000 for your purchase price, that minimum down payment is 5%. So you could have situations where your deposit amount and your down payment amount is essentially the same, and your down payment is paid off when you hand in your deposit. In other situations where you're essentially exceeding that $500,000 mark in terms of your purchase price, or maybe you choose to put a higher deposit down, those amounts might be different. So in terms of what they are, the deposit is good faith money that gets held in trust, typically once subjects are removed, that you're essentially committing to this property up until the completion date. So your deposit forms a part of your down payment, whereas your down payment is your total amount that you're putting towards the purchase out of your own personal money and isn't due until the completion date. So the amounts may be different and the timing is absolutely different. So if we're working off an example that we had used previously, which is $475,000, right? So we know that $475K is less than that $500,000 threshold. So we're working off a 5% minimum down payment number. So as we said previously, that amount comes out to $23,750 minimum down payment requirement. So as I said, the deposit, often the standard is going to be 5%. So in this situation, you're going to give your $23,750 at, say in this example, at subject removal. And then your down payment is going to be due at completion, which might be 2 weeks later, 2 months later, 3 months later. It all depends on what you negotiated. So in this situation, because you already gave your total 5%, all you're going to be paying at your down payment is your closing costs. And any additional things that, say, the lawyer has calculated for you. But in this situation, your deposit equals your down payment because you only intended to put 5% down. Now, let's say that, for example, even though your minimum down payment is only 5%, let's say that you decided that for your down payment, you actually want to put 10% down, right? So then what would happen is your deposit forms a part of your down payment. So that means that at completion, right, when you go to put any additional amount down plus your closing costs, you are going to just minus the 5% deposit you already gave. And now at completion, you just need to bring 5% plus closing costs. So that is how you can see the difference between this deposit and down payment. Your down payment is the minimum amount or whatever amount you decide to put forward. Your deposit is typically going to be around 5%, and any excess amount that you want to put down happens at completion and is just going to be minus any deposit plus your closing costs. Thanks so much for watching this video on minimum down payment requirements in Canada and also the new changes effective as of December 15th, 2024. If you are looking for a realtor to help you buy, sell, invest in the Greater Vancouver or Fraser Valley areas, definitely feel free to reach out to myself and my team at Bridgewell Real Estate Group. We would be more than happy to help you, just point you in the right direction for this often overwhelming and complex process. And as I mentioned before, we've got a really great list of mortgage brokers that are just like good quality people to work with that also have a similar style to us in terms of education. So you can definitely feel free to reach out if you would like a recommendation for a mortgage broker as well. If you liked this video, of course, like it and please subscribe to the channel. It supports us a lot. And we have a lot of educational content like this that you can also scroll through and check out for the future. And we would absolutely love to see you around. So thanks so much again for watching, guys, and have a great day.